and has also held several posts in many other professional bodies. He has several national and international publications to his credential. Some of his academic papers and reports include Environment and Law in the Oxford Companion to Economics in India, Activism, Separation of Powers and Development, Journal of Development Economics, Labour Markets in India, Issues and Perspectives, Structuring Regulation, the Constitutional and Legal Frame in India, Economic and Political Weekly, and these are to name a few. Professor R.K. Mishra, on to the dais. Dr. R.K. Mishra, Council and Commonwealth Secretariat. He has had research stints at London Business School and Maison des Sciences de la Holmes, Paris. He has taught at the University of Bradford, United Kingdom, and was a visiting professor in public administration and education. He has been consultant to several organizations including PwC, DFID, Adam Smith Institute, London, WB, ADB, and Centre for Good Governance. He is Vice President, International Association of Schools and Institutes in Administration, Brussels. He is the Chairman of the Working Group 2, Public-Private Partnership and Enterprise Management, constituted by IASIA. He is on the Steering Committee of Network of Asia Pacific Schools and Institutes of Public Administration and Governance, supported by the Asian Development Bank. He is Honorary Member on the Board of Research, American Biographical Institute, USA. He has handled several assignments. He is a member of several boards. He has several international and national publications. His current interests include e-governance, modernization of state civil service systems, financial administration, privatization and restructuring, poverty management and good governance. I now request Dr. Lakshmi Kumari, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Economics. Please welcome Kumari. I request Shaheen, Assistant Professor. Please welcome Kumari. Let us begin the session with a prayer song sung by Ms. Soumya.
या कुन्देन्दु तुषारहार तवका या शुभ्रवस्त्रान्विता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्मार्चितशङ्कर प्रकृतिभिः देवैः सदा पूजिता
Respected Mrs. Ramasa Guru, Professor Anand, Shadi, Lakshmi, senior colleagues from faculty, friends from media and invitees. I request you to join me in giving a big round of applause to Justice Rao and Professor Anand. A new leaf in the history of IPE. We have two very eminent leaders, opinion makers and policy makers in Justice Rao and Professor Anand. Very difficult to describe Justice Rao, though we have tried to do a bit about that. IPE is very lucky. My colleagues are very lucky that we worked with Justice Rao for full 2 years in submitting a report on wages and compensation policies for public sector, and that will rule the compensation system in public enterprises for next 10 years. What is important is not duration, but what is important, there is a great departure, a great shift. So far, public enterprise salaries were linked to civil service salaries. And from day one, when I started working with Professor Rao and my colleagues in that team, Shastri is there are some who are not with us, we found his approach was very different. And he wanted to benchmark the public sector salaries. He wanted to see whether public sector salaries are moving in tandem with private sector salaries. He wanted public sector people to be efficient. He wanted new concepts of compensation system to come into public sector, like performance-related salaries, variable salaries, and incentives, bonuses, promotions. A very different kind of approach Justice Rao had in mind. And we are skeptical whether it will succeed there or not, because in this country we have a very strong bureaucracy of 5,000 or 6,000 people. And they had different kind of thinking, and they were thinking that the two cannot be separated. But Justice Rao, with his incisive, thinking, could even change the mind of people at the top, secretaries to the Government of India, the cabinet secretary, and people down below the line. And we found a great support coming from civil service sector, great support coming from the Prime Minister, great support coming from the Public Enterprise Minister. And they put their hands down and they said that no, come what may, this report is going to be accepted. And we saw petroleum sector people coming forward, they didn't like about a lakh of people, but all of them now have fallen in line, and now public sector is not a holy cow. And that's what we are going to discuss now. Public sector is not above law. Public sector has to be competitive, and the kind of learning that we had under the guidance of Justice Rao was tremendous. It was totally different, and it made us topical. Sir, we are very grateful to you that you accepted and you took us in your fold, and we have been the beneficiary of your acts of kindness. We have been going for several things for this direction. At one point of time, IP was to be taken over by the central government. Professor Anand is also there. Two ministers, they wanted IP to be shifted to Ministry of Heavy Industry, and they were all powerful ministers. But there came, I think, the intervention of Justice Rao and his guidance, and we continue to be what we are. We thought that as an autonomous unit, as an academic unit, as an academic institutions, we can survive better than being part of this ministry or that ministry. We enjoy fully, our work under Professor Anand, and we are very grateful to you, sir, for that. So far as Professor Anand is concerned, he revolutionized the ICSSR. He infused new thinking in the ICSSR. ICSSR became more relevant, more topical. He raised very pertinent issues. What should be the whole purpose of the ICSSR? What should be the linkage between ICSSR and UGC and the other systems? How research can be strengthened? How research institutes can have a better relationship with the ICSSR? The relationship of the institutes and ICSSR with the government, and he made ICSSR a thinking institution. And I think all of us, we had access to him. ICSSR people also feel the same way. In fact, I was there yesterday in the ICSSR. Though he has come back to academics, that is our game. But certainly, I think at that time also we wanted, a person like Professor Anand is very difficult. People can come and go, but the kind of people should be there. I think that's a big question, and we talk about that in investor relations. Today we had a lecture. We had distinguished lecture noted here, who is faculty from Professor Anand, and there also we had a good deal of relevant thinking coming from him. We talked of the directions for the future, the kind of research faculty should do, the kind of research students should do, PhD work, how we can promote PhD, tradition in the institute, and how IP is different from other institutes in India. And there we found a new kind of thinking. The public sector of yesterday is different from the public sector of today, because the economy has undergone a change, polity has undergone a change. We may not talk of management systems in public enterprises, because that has become a beaten track. But today, as I think would come from this distinguished lecture, government is withering away, and regulatory bodies, they are coming up. And so if people look to regulatory bodies, government looks to regulatory bodies, international associations and governments, they look to regulatory bodies. They are going to play a great role. And what Karl Marx told, I think in different context, that states will wither away, that context was different. But certainly I think the state is thinking, and regulatory bodies, they are filling up that void, that vacuum. and how do they work, how do they affect the lives of people, the lives of citizens in the country, how their requisite justice Rao is there, how their action can lead to injustice, how it can promote justice. We can understand now pricing policy of the utilities is decided by regulatory authorities, because they might, I think, request and intent and they decide. Like now we have umpteen number of regulatory authorities. We have SEBI on the one hand, which is Reserve Bank of India on the other hand. We have about 22 regulatory authorities in the power sector in different countries. We have CERC at the center. We have an authority in the drug and pharmaceutical area. We have another authority in the fertilizer area. We have one more authority in the transport area. We are talking of nuclear commission, power commission, and we are discussing with Professor Anand. There is a talk that UGC, AICT, and many other bodies, they may also be brought together. So it's a regulation, I think, which is going to show a direction to the society. Understanding regulation is very complex and very difficult. What it is, how does it function, how does it work, how should it work, what is the relationship of regulatory bodies and institutes like this, that was also discussed. That is one thing. Number two, under what law they should work. And we have Justice Rao there. It's a very, very difficult and complicated thing. And I think this, both Professor Anand will, I think, lift that content of complexity. I hope I think through this lecture we get introduced to this very, very complex and difficult area. So about 15 years back, we had only one or two journals on regulation and economics. We thought that law is different and economics is different. For the first time when you sent me to France, I had an opportunity to go to their industrial economics institute, and I saw for the first time a journal over there. I understand now more and more journals are coming, law institutes are coming, universities are coming, and that is becoming something important. And in your coming today, I am sure IB is seeing a new direction. We say that individuals, they come and go, they get born, they die, but institutions, they continue. And I think this kind of intervention today that we have from Professor Anand will give a new lease of life to IB for future, for thinking, for research, and the work that it can do for society. So we are very, very lucky to have Professor Rao, Justice Rao, who was away to UK. He is one of the topmost international arbitrators in the world. He was there for 6 weeks and cutting it short. I think he stole some time for us, and he could just come yesterday morning, day for yesterday morning, and then he was so kind enough to give a link to find out what is happening, and we informed Professor Anand immediately. I think this is the first public, event, I think, that is being addressed by Justice Rao after his return from UK. That shows his love and affection, not only to the institute, but also to this very, very important topic, which I again would say is a very complex thing to understand. But I am sure with these two gurus, I will say it should be possible for us just to get introduced and work in the future. On that note, I, on behalf of my colleagues, on your behalf, on behalf of the board, Professor Ramarao just asked me to convey with special thanks to Justice Rao, our President, and also to Professor Anand for coming and observing this. Thank you.
I request Professor T.C.A. Anand to deliver the lecture on building a regulation law.
Friends and colleagues from the IB, it gives me great pleasure to be here, particularly that of speaking on the topic of regulation, because it's not coincidence. I first came to Hyderabad, I may have come as a child, I don't know, first came to Hyderabad as an academic, in that refresher course for which I had come as an expert. The topic on which I was speaking was also regulation. So I have stayed with regulation as a topic of work, though admittedly what I spoke then will be very different from what I did now. At that time I was a young economist, much more concerned with mathematical techniques. So I was talking a lot more on the technical aspects of regulation. Today I talk more about the institutional aspects of regulation. Let me start by saying why is regulation important. Professor Mishra just now talked about a plethora of regulatory institutions. In fact, Every time you read the newspaper, you find the government is thinking of setting one or more regulatory institutions. There's a whole slew of them. In virtually every sector of the economy that you can think of, there is now a regulatory institution. In some sense, this is a natural flow from the policies which were set up by some say 1990, some say 1980, of liberalization, where the state stepped back from the direct provision of goods and services. If you look at the constitution, I have circulated the paper, but I'm not necessarily skipping to the text with it. The power to regulate comes from a section in Article 19 which gives the freedom of individuals to carry out activities, economic activities, business. It's the basic freedom under which all of us carry out our professional lives. In that Article 19, there is a subsection 6 which permits the government to make regulations in public interest. There is another clause in that section which also says that nothing stated in Article 19 will prevent the government from directly providing goods and services where it deems necessary. This restriction on Article 19 freedoms was already provided in the Constitution, because it was visualized that there may be areas of activity where the government may decide to do it itself and not leave it to the freedom of individuals to practice their professional rights. So both clauses were there in the same article. The case for the public sector as well as the case for regulation. In effect, what has happened is we have moved from one clause of Article 19 to another clause in the process of liberalization. Because once the government gives up direct provision, it becomes incumbent on the government to ensure that exercise of Article 19 freedoms does not cause harm to the public interest. That's an obligation which is there as an essential part of governance. Now, traditional analysis of regulation often aims to analyze the efficacy of the mechanisms or instruments used to achieve the professed ends, or it seeks to evaluate objectives and the functioning of regulatory agencies. This is where the mathematical techniques come in, the large discussion comes in on how should we regulate X, Y, Z and so on. While this exercise is important and certainly very widely needed, it is important to realize that the choice of instruments and their use takes place inside a construct of governance, and in particular constitutional governance. Thus, when the public interest theory of regulation perceives regulation as a coordinated correction of various market failures by stimulating market outcomes that the market have configured in the absence of market failure, it implicitly believes that a selfless state acts to effect such a correction. This is problematic because, among other things, this understanding of regulation treats the state as a black box. The idea is that there is perfection and the state will seek to achieve that perfection. Since the state is viewed as a black box, there is no space for the isomorphic of the image of market failure, namely government failure. This point was made long ago by eminent Nobel laureate Coase, discussing the problem of regulation. He said, until we realize that we are choosing between social arrangements which are all more or less failures, we are not likely to make much headway. It is this basic understanding which drives my discussion with you today. Now, in understanding how should we structure regulation, we cannot therefore ignore or wish away trying to understand what do we mean by the notion of the state. And it is this element to which I will now turn to. We proceed by schematically describing the state as a series of institutions that derive authority from a constitutional structure. We further explore relationships between them using the doctrine of separation of powers. I will illustrate my discussion with a number of case studies drawn from examples relating to property, education, environment, as well as some of the newer regulatory agencies which have been coming up. But before we begin, I would like to take some time and talk about the doctrine of separation of powers. In liberal states, the highest source of law is the Constitution. The constitutions supply rules of the game within which social arrangements follow. They also seek to promote a set of normative values for society. For instance, the principles of justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, and so on. It is often to balance or encourage such normative values that certain doctrines are incorporated into the constitutions. It has widely been suggested that the concern for liberty has caused liberal constitutions to include the doctrine of separation of powers. This is the essential principle of the argument by Montesquieu. But let me give you another argument for separation of powers, which is in the writings of the famous philosopher, economist Adam Smith. To quote from The Wealth of Nations, "The separation of the judicial from the executive power seems originally to have arisen from the increasing business of society, its consequence of increasing improvement. The administration of justice becomes so laborious and so complicated a duty to require the undivided attention of the persons to whom it was entrusted." This is along the lines of Adam Smith arguing that judiciary, like everything else, requires specialization, and so we must have specialists for the judiciary. But then he also says elsewhere, when the judicial is united to the executive power, it is scarce possible that justice should not frequently be sacrificed to what is vulgarly called politics. The persons entrusted with the greater